What is going on, guys? We are back playing some more Surviving with Thaumcraft 5. Now today, guys, we're going to be discussing all things related to Taint. Now we're going to be mainly looking at how to monitor Taint and how to get ahead of the curve so that you don't jump into your world one day and realize that your base has been overrun with Taint. And it is pretty important that you deal with that because it can be a real pain in the butt to get rid of. So in a couple of my other videos that we've done before this, I've discussed things that will produce flux, which can lead to taint, such as when you're throwing a bunch of stuff in the crucible and you don't use all of it up, then that will dissipate. Or if you want to get rid of all the water in the crucible and all the stuff that's in there and you just shift click on it, that will again just dissipate into flux in the atmosphere. Along with that, we've talked about the Essentia smeltery and how although there are add-ons that you can attach to it to prevent it from producing as much flux when it's working, it still does produce that. So there are a lot of downsides that come along with doing all this fun magical stuff, and eventually that will lead to taint spawning in your area. Now, if we pull out the thermometer, you can see up in the upper left-hand corner, it's looking at all the different levels, and they seem, pretty good. But at the very bottom, there's that purple level, and that is looking, I believe it would be called the flux in the area. And eventually if that gets too high, you're going to have an issue where, you will start getting tainted land and it'll be very bad and you'll get, liquid flux and it's all over the place and things will actually start spawning there. You can get tentacles spawning and all that, and you don't want to deal with that around your base. So like I said, we're going to be monitoring that. Now, a lot of people do take precautions when it comes to, not producing that much flux around their base because taint is very bad, such as using the crucible and the Essentia smeltery and all this stuff in the nether, because the nether can't actually get tainted land there. You can get very high levels of flux there, but you will not get taint. So there are a couple precautions, but we're going to assume today that you have not taken any of those precautions, thrown caution to the wind, and just started doing stuff like I did around your base. So there are a couple things we're going to be working with today. So the research that I have done is going to be the thaumic, I believe it's dioptra, I don't know how you pronounce that, but that is going to allow us to look at the different levels in our area. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the levels of flux in our area. But it's really awesome because you can look at the levels of pretty much anything, and that's based around throwing in a shard once you have the actual block created, and then that shard, based on what you throw in there, you can throw in a balance, any of the primal aspect shards, or a tainted shard will show you either that specific aspect in the area around you. So if you were to throw in, I guess, an earth shard, it would show you that specific one in the area around you. I believe it's a 13 chunk radius. And how that is, if you throw in a balanced shard, it'll show you generic information, and we'll mess around with all this, but we're going to be looking at a tainted shard because that's going to show us the flux in the area around us, and we're going to be going through how to create that, which is going to require the crystal farmer research. Now, the crystal farmer research isn't initially available to you. You do have to go around with the thermometer and scan stuff. I do want to say that I got it from scanning seeds, but I'm not actually sure. I did scan a couple different things, but if you open up the Thauminomicon, you can see that on the first page, it's right up here. So it comes off of ores, and it is the crystal farmer. So you don't necessarily need this unless you're following my exact procedure today. We're going to be using this because we cannot find crystals in the nether, so we are going to make it so that we can plant them in the nether, turn them into tainted crystals, break them, pull them out, and use those to actually see the levels of flux. If you wanted to go in the overworld and do the same thing I'm doing right now, you would not need to have the crystal farmer research. All you would need to do is go and find some shards naturally in the world. So to get this, it's relatively simple. It's a lot of the primal aspects in here that you're going to be connecting. But yeah, this is the research here. And then for the thaumic dioptra, this is the research right here. So as always, you can pause the video on those, and gonna get both of these researched. Okay, so we go to crystal farmer, and it pretty much is going to be you turn a shard along with some salus mundus and some seeds into a crystal that you can then place down, and it'll be like it naturally spawned in the world. Now, this is an infusion. It's super easy to do. And so what we're going to be using today is going to be some soul sand, some nether quartz, some seeds, and then I believe we're just going to use some earth shards because it doesn't really matter which one you're converting. But unfortunately, before we can actually do that, we do need to get the Salus Mundus. And to get this, it's relatively simple. You're just going to be smelting down a balance shard. So if you guys didn't see my previous episode, I do have one here, but we discussed the automated alchemy, which makes things a lot easier. So we can just throw in, let's say, an earth shard in here. We can select the balance shard. It'll fill all these up, and then it will spit it out. So now we have 2 balance shards. I'm going to deselect this. It is a lot easier to get these when you have this whole setup. And then we can come over here and throw them in. I gotta grab some coal too. Where did I throw that coal? There we go. Okay, so we throw the coal in here. Allow this to cook down, and then we should be good to go with the infusion. I am going to be using the soul sand and the nether quartz right now just to get some more essentia when it comes to actually setting this up. And I think we should have open void jars over here for this to go into. Yeah, we definitely do. Okay, so we're going to be doing, let's go to this. We're going to be needing the vitreous and the vinculum. I think that's how you say it. And this is going to be coming from the soul sand, and then the vitreous you can get from diamonds and stuff, but I'm just going to be using nether quartz because I have a lot of it. It's relatively easy to get when you're, in single player and you're not dealing with people fighting for it on a server. Same with glowstone. I don't think we actually need that much of this, but it goes relatively quickly, and then we can get the soul sand in there, and we actually are only going to need to make one of these earth crystals. I could make more if I wanted to, and eventually I will make more and get more tainted shards, but we're only going to need one today because that's all we're going to be using. You only need to put one into the thaumic dioptra. And you can see right there that purple gas, that is actually flux that is being released as a byproduct. That is what we're dealing with, and that is what's going to increase the purple levels down at the bottom in the upper left-hand corner. Now, obviously, it is very minimal right now, but eventually, as you're going to see when we go into the nether, you can drastically increase these levels if you're using just a general crucible and you just start chucking a bunch of stuff in there all at once. Just generic cobble, you can throw like 7 stacks in at once, and it'll really start getting the flux levels very high. So we should be good to go now doing this infusion. Come back here and grab the Salus Mundus. And luckily for us, we actually don't have that much that we need to deal with placing on pedestals. So we're going to throw Earth Shard down in there, seeds, Salus Mundus there, and I think that should be it. Let's just check one last time. Yep, that should be good. And now we can grab out our silverwood staff, and we can start going. I don't think we should have any issue with this, just make sure nothing pops off, but I believe it was negligible with the instability of this, as it should be. I mean, this really isn't giving us a ton. Okay. And there we go. So we now have the earth crystal. Now, if I were to place this down, it would pretty much just be like if you found a crystal in the world and you were going to break it, typically as you were, mining or something like that. Now, what we're going to be doing is trying to pretty much infect this to make it into a tainted shard. So it would become tainted crystal, and you break it and you get a tainted shard. Now, there are a couple different ways to do this, like I said, but this one is relatively simple. So we're going to come over here and we're going to grab the cauldron, a water bucket, and a flint and steel. And then we're going to come over and we're going to grab a good amount of cobble and just random junk. We can grab some granite, some andesite, some diorite. We can grab all that good stuff. We can even grab some gravel too. We just want to chuck as much into the crucible, which we're going to turn this cauldron into a crucible, as we can. And we're going to do that in the nether, so we're going to take a quick trip down there. I believe we should have everything we need. I haven't taken many trips to the nether, but I think we should be good when we get in here. Okay. Yeah, okay. So we're going to be working over here. Let things load in really quick. So if we pull out the thermometer, you can see that it's pretty pristine in here. All the levels are relatively even, but that should not be the case after we're done working for a little bit. So what we're going to do is take this earth crystal and we're going to throw it down right here. And you can see that this is pretty much what you'd find in the regular world. I can break this, I can get a shard from it, all that good stuff. And what we're going to do now is take the cauldron, throw it down. Luckily, we don't have to deal with getting a specific block to light on fire because all of these blocks can be lit on fire, which is great. So, gonna light, oh my gosh, dude, you're in my personal space. Out of all the places that you could go, you just decide you want to get all up in my personal space over here. Okay, you know what, just get out of there. Okay, so we throw down the cauldron, we're gonna turn it into the crucible, take our water bucket and put it in there. And now what we can do is start throwing all this cobble in there. Now, you would not want to do this in the overworld unless you're far away from your base, because this is going to produce a ton of flux. So, get up here, and we're just going to start chucking this stuff in there. It's going to make that splashing noise, and you can see it's producing all of that gas, all of that flux. And if we start looking, you can see now the purple levels have gone really far up. The flux is really, really up there. And it just keeps going. It's bubbling over, and this stuff is dissipating very quickly into the atmosphere. It's just going to keep producing that. And unfortunately, I don't think I have that much more I can throw in there for the time being. Hopefully that is enough. But what it should eventually do is when the levels get high enough, it should get this earth crystal, I guess you could say, infected with taint, or it would convert it. Now, luckily, like I said before, when you're dealing with stuff in the nether, the flux levels can go up very, very high, but it will not actually produce tainted land. It will not, convert the biome. It's always going to be the same, which is why you want to sometimes do this here. And I think we are going to need more blocks. Okay, so I'm going to hop off camera real quick. I'm going to throw in enough that we're going to get this earth crystal to become tainted crystal, and then we will jump back. Okay, guys, so we are back. Now, I've been doing a lot of work here. It did take a surprisingly large amount of cobble and just junk being thrown in here. Probably like a full inventory. I also made a couple more crystals, and now you can see, I believe that one just changed, but we do have a couple flux crystals on here that used to be earth crystals, and we should be able to break these, and this thing is still just going down. I threw so many blocks in here, but the rest of these might get converted. If we look at the levels now, they are relatively high, so we can break this, and we get out a tainted shard. Now, this is what we're going to be throwing in to actually see the levels of flux in the area. And the reason it's going to be really awesome is, if you don't know, you'll see it in a second, is that the thaumic dioptra, and I really am going to hate it if I'm saying this wrong, but that is going to give us a really awesome visual representation of what's going on in the area around us, and pretty much 13 chunk radius. Now, I am going to leave this here. I guess I can get rid of the water and just deplete it all out really quick, but I guess we can break this one too. We're only going to need one of these, but we can head back now and leave that set up there. Should not affect the overworld in any way. Eventually, you might want to do this in the overworld because you are going to want a tainted area, but you're going to want to make sure you keep that really far away from your base. So now we're going to go into the rest of the research that we were doing before, and that is going to be found under, oh gosh, where is it? Where is it? Not this one. Okay, down here, right. So it's past the goggles of revealing. It's the thaumic dioptra, and if we click on this, it pretty much allows you to see the surrounding aura in a simple and clean manner, and it really is cool. So you insert the shard into it, and you'll have a render of the aura in a 13 chunk diameter. It's not radius, whoops. Radius would be a really huge area. And it'll mark, specific sources with sparkles and all of that, and it'll show spikes in certain areas, and a comparator can be connected if you want to monitor the aura level of the chunk in which it was placed. Okay, so that is where a lot of the stuff over here is coming from. That's why I have 3 of these in total. Usually you wouldn't need this many thermometers, but you are going to need to craft more goggles of revealing to actually craft this whole thing. And oh gosh, yeah, okay, so I actually forgot that I had those in my inventory when I went to gather stuff, and I just recrafted all of the stuff, which took a surprisingly long amount of time. I don't know why I had trouble finding earth shards and stuff, but okay, so we are going to start crafting all of this. Should be relatively simple. So for this, it should be like so, and there we go, goggles of revealing. I didn't want to get rid of the ones that we already have because they are really nice to have, especially when you're working with all of the jars and stuff, or if you want to see nodes that are around you. But we are going to make those, and then we do need to grab out the arcane stone, and you're only going to need 5 of the regular arcane stone, but we are going to need a slab. It's going to go like so, and forgetting how you do this. Okay, so it's like that, and then the iron there. So there we go. We're only going to need 1 of these. You would make more if you wanted to monitor all the levels at the same time, but we can throw this down right over here in this corner. Doesn't look super fancy right now, but you can see that this area is where the crystal is going to go. If you're hovering over it right here, this is hovering over the block, this is hovering over where the crystal is going to go. And so first off, let's grab this. Oh, I do not have an extra balance shard. You know what, we can grab this and we can make one, because I want to show you what that can do. So hopefully we have all the stuff that we need to make this. Yes, we do. Okay, so balance shard, there we go. Deselect this. Okay, so if we were to throw the balance shard in there, it's showing the highest aura levels. And you can see this, I think this is the coolest thing. This is an awesome display, and it's showing all the aura levels in a 13 chunk diameter around us. You can pretty much tell what they are from the color on them, but if you wanted to get more specific, and you can see the sparkles that it was talking about with nodes and stuff like that, and you can remove it by right-clicking on it. And if we wanted to get super specific, we could come over and we could grab a fire shard, and we could throw that in there and then take it out. And I'm probably going to end up keeping a chest next to this that has one of every crystal in it, but then we can see the Ignis levels in the area around us, and you can see it does spike, and you can swap it out right away by clicking on it if you don't want to have to take it out and then swap another one in. So we can get both of those out, and then we can throw in, come over here and grab the tainted shard, and we can throw this in. Now these levels should be significantly lower, and the reason that they're spiking in the center is because that is where all of the work is being done. So they would spike a little bit more as it would start to spread out. If I was doing a ton of magic in here or doing what I just did in the nether, you'd see enormous spikes and it would start spreading out in the area around it and creating taint. But because we don't do that much, and because, you know, it's not crazy, it's pretty low level, but eventually this will get higher and higher and higher as we're working with this, especially because we're doing this all in the overworld. So it's important that we maintain this and continue monitoring it. So this is a pretty low level as to where we are, and obviously the center is where we are, but we're going to try and lower that, and there are a couple ways to do this. One of the easiest, though, would be to take a silverwood sapling and use that. So there are a couple different ways that you can deal with actually having taint, but this is one of the, I believe, one of the easiest ways. Just, you know, go get some silverwood saplings. They're really not that hard to find, and then you plant them and grow them, and they do have a chance of spawning a node in them in the trunk that will help either convert the area into a magical forest, but it will also help keep taint away and help get rid of you know, the flux in the atmosphere, the taint around you. Now, they're not as effective once you already have taint in the area. You will need to use other things. I believe it's called the ethereal. Yeah, so you'd need the ethereal bloom, which will help you get rid of actual taint blocks in the area around you if the area has been converted to tainted land. But this is kind of a beginning precautionary measure. Now, I'm not going to plant a ton of these, and it is becoming nighttime outside, and I don't even have, do I even have a bed in this world? No, I don't, because usually I don't go outside. Now, one thing I've noticed is I do get lag, like right when I walk out here, it's like a second of lag, so just be warned. But I can throw down some torches out here. I don't think we'll have to deal with any guys, but let's see if we can get the lag. Oh, there's a guy right there. I think it's, yep, right there. You get like a little bit of a stutter, which is always weird. I get a couple of these small stutters, which shouldn't be an issue right around the base, because we're not going to be out here too long. But I do want to plant one of these trees down. So we can plant one, let's just say right here. Pretty open area. Now, I did make the hoe of growth because I had seen a couple things, and I don't know if this is still the case, but you shouldn't be able to use bone meal, or you used to not be able to use bone meal. It looks like you can now, but we can also use the hoe of growth to speed up the process. So it does act like bone meal, and you can see we did get a node in there. So you can get a couple different nodes in these. They spawn in the trunk. It is a relatively large tree, so just, you know, be warned about that. We can plant another one over here. I think we should have enough room. Mr. Skeleton, you know what? Let's go at him with our fancy new sword. There we go. Okay, so we can plant another one over here. See if we can grow it with the bone meal first. There we go. That one's an even larger tree. That's great. Okay, so planting a bunch of these around, eventually I'll get to, you know, getting more saplings, planting more of them, hopefully get a couple more nodes in them, all that good stuff. But these should help us kind of maintain a nice level while we're outputting flux in here all the time. And, you know, I have tested this out. I'm not sure how effective it is. I haven't seen much documentation, because this is not typically the way people would go about removing a ton of flux from the area around them. But I did test this out in a creative world where I just, you know, went around and spawned tons of these silverwood trees around an area where I pretty much did what I did in the nether, and it did significantly decrease the levels. I also used ethereal blooms, and they did effectively get rid of the taint. So this is an effective way to get rid of it, but I don't know if you can see it. I think the level just went down a little bit right over there. So not much to get rid of though. But that's going to be it for today, guys. I hope you found the video entertaining or informative. If you did find it either of those, feel free to give it a like, as it does help me out a lot. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments. I know this is a topic that is pretty important when it comes to Thaumcraft, and there isn't that much documentation on it, especially in Thaumcraft 5. So honestly, if you have any questions at all, post those in the comments, and hopefully I'll be able to answer them. But I will talk to you guys later.